Hello everyone, Xfluen here, and today we're revisiting a little bit of classic, the Cast When Stunned Chieftain. I played around with this build quite like most of every league, and every time I had blast with it, so I figured out why not to bring it for 3.27 and give it another showcase. Some build just is fun and just sticks to playing with it, so why not. It's not the world greatest single target slayer, but don't worry, it just handles tier 16, tier 16.5 and tier 17 bosses just fine. Some of them might take a little bit longer, but it's capable of doing that. But the real magic happens when in tight, narrow maps like toxic sewers, as example, where monsters chain explode the moment they start hitting you. It just, I don't know, it's just satisfying. In this video, I'll walk you through the items I'm using, the gem setup, the passive tree, which map mods to avoid, and the best farming strategies for this build. At the end of the video, as always, I'll show a full map showcase, share my PoE, and I will drop links for the items if you want to try it yourself. And now let's get into it. So probably for now, let's go over the items. And here we go. So for the items, as for the scepter, we are using Nebulous Synthesized Void Scepter, and basically we're using, because of the implicits of increased spell damage and fire damage, you can just get any another ones, but most important is probably the fire damage and spell damage. The prices can vary between, I don't know, between couple of chaos to like 20 or 50 divine, depend on the rolls and everything. So in this case, I'm using increased spell damage, increased fire damage. Gain 10 mana per enemy kill doesn't help us because we don't use mana. As you can see, our mana is 0. And for the modifiers, well, the higher number of increased implicit magnitudes, and the highest number of increased elemental damage per 1% of fire, cold, or lightning resistance above 75. And with this one, we can also put it in the Horycraft bench and add that it will give us a little bit of area of effect on the weapon. So for the skill gems on the weapon, I'm using Cast When Stunned. So basically, whenever the monsters hit us, they always are stunned. And we are stunned, I mean. And then we're using Flammability for Flammability. Cursed enemies have minus elemental, minus fire resistance, and they have a chance to ignite. So that works perfect. As for the third socket, I'm just using Frostblink just to move around if we need. And basically that's it. So for the helmet, we're using armor-based helmet, and in this case, we are still using it socketed gem supported by level 18 Burning Ground and level 18 Consecrated effect. If you can get level 20 burning damage and level 20 concentrated effect, but those might get really pricey, so it depends on your budget, so. And in here, we are going just for the resistances, increased burning damage, increased area damage, and some life as well, because, well, we are still using Righteous Fire as well as our damage source, combined with the other skills, so, it's just up to you. You can just basically swap if you want all the Righteous Fire to Cast When Stunned and other skills. It's actually up to you. And in my case, I'm using Righteous Fire, that's where our main most of the damage comes in right now, or at least versus really trash single target mobs, and it's together with elemental focus support, increased area of effect support, and efficacy support. Now let's go over the shield, and for the shield, basically what I wanted here is just to socketed gems have 30% increased reservation efficiency, so they will reserve a little bit less life for us. Then with max life, percentage to maximum fire resistance, some extra fire resistance, and as for the last modifier, for the prefix, I just slammed in the bench for some increased armor and max life. Also, good thing to note, you can go for armor base. Just in my case, I just found this for quite cheap. Also, it has 6% increased movement speed, so that's fine. I mean, I'm fine going with this. Now let's go over the amulet. Amulet is one of the most important pieces here because of the last modifier, gain 25% of missing unreserved life before being hit an enemy, and this can roll between 10 and 20. So I mean, yeah, from 10 to 24, I think. So what you want to get as close as to 24% is better. Also, it gives us quite good options as well for all the resistances, a little bit of max life. And here we am on anointed vampirism for recover 3% of life on kill. That helps to get a lot of life recovery when we kill trash mobs, and 12 of damage taken recouped as life. Since we want enemies to hit us, and if they hit us, they deal damage for that. So we have some percentage of the damage recouped as life. So for the armor, we go probably best in slot, Cloak of Flame, Scholar's Robe, and here it just gives us a bunch of fire resistance, increased ignite duration on enemies, and 40% of physical damage taken as fire damage. So that's huge physical damage mitigation for us. And here we are going with 6 links, and here we are using cast one stunned. We're using Flame Surge, we're using Bladeful of Volleys, we're using Spell Cascade support, Firestorm of Pelting, and Frost Bomb in our case. Now, on the rings, one of the rings, Valyrium Moonstone Ring, is mandatory. For the last modifier, stun threshold is based on energy shield instead of life, and you need this in order to play with this build as well. So here we are going for corruption for increased dexterity and intelligence, because we are really need those stats, and there's not much space where we can put that in our skill tree. So best thing to go with is the rings, where you can get extra stats. In our case, yeah, as I said, increased dexterity and intelligence. Also, it gives a little bit fire resistance, but does downside, it gives minus 40 to cold resistance. For another ring is Hateful Accuser. This is basically just for bossing setup and to kill the bosses faster, because you can cast level 20 Penance Mark, and with this skill you just summon little like trash mobs, and those can help you ignite, and if those ignite catches the boss will just melt in a second. If you're not using this one, you can use something like this, which the new rings in this case it's Antaplic ring, and it gives maximum fire resistance for us, a little bit of stats in here, max life and fire resistance as well. So if you're fine, you can just drop this one and use another one, but if you want to have this all the time, you can have it. And as for the corruption, also I went for some increased strength and increased dexterity. For the strength, it gives us a little bit of life, and dexterity, well, because we're starving for some of the stats, so it just helps us a lot. Now let's move over the gloves. On the gloves, basically I went for the stats, whatever I need for some maximum life, and we benchcrafted 27% increased damage during any flask effect, and usually all our flasks are under effect, so we always have 27% increased damage applied to us. And on the gloves, also you want to go for the armor base. In my case, I just found these ones, so it works fine. And for the gem setup, I'm using cast one stun support. Obviously, I'm using calling strike support. So basically, whenever supported skills kills an enemy, if it has 10% life or lower, it can kill the enemy instantly. Also, you'll recover 2% of life when supported skill calls an enemy. So that's another great way to scale our recovery of the life in our case. And here we're using Wave Conviction of Tratrus. So basically, this one just casts the skill automatically all the time, and it calls enemies. Also, we're using Firestorm Pelting just for some increased area for the cooling strike support as well. Now let's go over the belt, and for the belt we're using Immortal Flesh. Some other people using Mage Bloods. You can, if you have one. Some people using some rare belts and so on. But in here, I'm using Immortal Flesh just for the really high flat regenerate life per second rolls. Also, as the downside, it gives us a little bit of minus to all elemental resistance, but that's fine. Also, 40% increased armor while not ignited, frozen, and shocked, and we usually not, so we have also increased armor in our case. And last but not least, for the boots, basically, for the implicits, you want maximum fire resistance, and in my case, I went for 7% increased life to regenerate. And here I went for armor base, obviously, for some maximum life, chaos resistance, some movement speed, and dexterity, because once again, we are kind of need in a lot of stats, as you'll see later. Now, for the flasks. Cinder Swallow Urine, basically probably the best also in slot because it recovers 3% of life when you kill an enemy during effect. So this helps to sustain our lives quite a lot. Then we're using Quicksilver Flask for the flat increased movement speed. And what you want to get is gain some charges when you're hit by an enemy. 2 is fine, 3 is best. And I went for immunity to poison during effect, and usually this uptime is like 95%. So at 95%, we're immune to poison. This is great mitigation for us. For the next flask, we're using Ruby Flask of Craft. Ruby Flask just because it gives 5% maximum fire resistance, and in this way we can cap out all our elemental resistances. I'll show you a bit later. And here we have the same thing. Gain 3 charges when you're hit by an enemy, and 50% of damage from taken hits is leached as life during effect. So this gives another bunch of life recovery for us. Now next one is Amethyst Flask, just for the chaos resistance, because in my case I didn't put a lot of items with chaos res, so we need some chaos resistance in our case. And here I got gain 2 charges when you are hit by an enemy, and 43% increased armor during effect, because with the we are trying to get some of the armor, so it helps us as well. And the last but not least, Basalt Flask for increased flat more armor, and gain 3 charges when you hit by an enemy, taunts nearby enemies on use, and immune to bleeding and corrupted blood during effect. So this helps also quite a lot whenever we inflicted with bleeding or corrupted blood. So as I told, uptime is like 95%. So 95%, we usually are fine with these ones here. Now for the grafts, I'm using one of the molten graft, and in here it just basically using because of it gives increased armor and some flat chance to ignite. Also it gives a skill Heart of Flame, which adds a buff for us, which takes some damage before, so this is great mitigation for the defensive layers. And another one I'm using Stoking Graft, and in Stoking Graft we are using because it gives us another chance to ignite, and it gives us some elemental ailments removal every 8 seconds. So this is also good kind of defensive mitigation in our case as well. One thing for the boots, for the gems, I forgot to tell you, I'm using Detonate Dead of Scavenging, Deadly Ailments, Cast when stunned, and Burning Damage support. So I explained the items, and as you can see, right now it doesn't look good. We have 85 fire, 79 cold, and 73 chaos. But whenever we pop Ruby Flask, we all at 90%. So we do not worry about anything. All our res is 90, and life is beautiful, life is good. And usually our Ruby Flask is also at 95% of the uptime. So we have no problems. Usually we always at 90% resistance. So now let's go over the skill tree and I'll show you how we do this time. So here, obviously Chieftain, there's nothing new, nothing crazy. For here, we're taking Hinekora. That's probably the best thing what we can get here, just for the explosives, explosions everywhere. So obviously we're taking this. Then obviously we're taking Tassalio, Cleansing Waters, modifiers to fire resistance also apply to cold and lightning resistances at 50% of their value. And basically in this way we can stack a lot of fire resistance, and we get also some cold and lightning resistance. So if you're really do not have any way to get another resistances, you can just put a lot of flat fire res and that helps you out. Then we're going for extra fire res and regenerate life. And here Valako Storm's Embrace modifiers to maximum fire resistance also applies to maximum cold and lightning resistances. So this is how we are getting all our resistances at 90%. And last but not least, we are taking Ramako Sun's Light. Nearby enemies monsters fire resistance against damage over time into -20 while you are stationary. But here, with new ascendancies, you can play around with something. Probably you can go over with the Breach Lord ascendancy and get some nodes there. It's just up to personal preference. I didn't do that yet, but probably I will. But as I said, it's personal preference, and whatever you want to do, it will be fine. Even with this one, it works perfect. So here we are just taking all these nodes here for some regen life, some strength life, and so on. Here we're taking all elemental resistance and 2% to all maximum elemental res. We're taking some strength nodes up to here for increased stun threshold. 10% of damage taken from stunning hits is recovered as life as well. And hits against you cannot be critical strikes if you've been stunned recently. And usually we stun like all the time. So in this way, we are mitigating our crit strikes against enemies, so we don't need to care about that at all. Here we're taking all the maximum life nodes, and here we're branching one side for some increased efficiency of the reservation skill. So in this case, we can get more life. And on the other side, we're just going for some max life nodes. For some dexterity nodes. For the jewels, I went for flat intelligence, increased max life, and some chance to ignite as well. And here I'm taking +1 to maximum endurance charges because those are helping us a lot. Here we are taking blood magic, removes all mana, but we get 10% more maximum life. So this is great for us. We are stacking life here. We are taking inexorable, and probably this one of the best nodes because it gives us chance to gain endurance charge when you're hit. And since we're hit all the time, we almost all the time sustaining our endurance charges, and in my case we're having 5 or 6, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's 5. Also here I'm taking 20% increased armor per second if you've been stationary. And here we're just moving all along and taking all the life armor nodes. Also +1 to maximum endurance charges. One of the jewels we're using Blood Notch. This is mandatory here. For percentage of the damage taken from stunning hits is recovered as life. You can get a higher number on here. In my case, I just went for 49 and it works fine. Here as well, some life nodes, regenerate life node, life, maximum fire resistance. Here, increase maximum life if there's no life modifiers on equipped body armor, because we don't have any life modifiers on armor. It works fine for us. And here we're just going here for a +2 to all maximum elemental resistances, and this works fine. Now more up, we are going the same story. Max life, maximum endurance charges. Another one, immutable force for increased stun or block recovery. Any number will do fine. Some people saying the highest number is the better. In my case, I don't think though that's the case. So basically any number will do just fine. And in here, we're just going for some increased elemental damage, increased and chance to freeze, shock, and ignite. Here, same thing, max life, maximum life, and some chaos resistance, and here flat 30 life. Here we're taking burning damage multiplier, chance to ignite, holy fire, and regenerate 1% life per second for each 1% uncapped fire resistance. So in this way, this is how we can sustain our life and use righteous fire at the same time. And in here we're using one jewel with some chaos resistance. You can get whatever you want, and one is mandatory, fan of the flames. And fan of the flames gives you ignites you inflict spread to other enemies within radius of 1.5 meters. You can get this modifier on your gloves. If you want, you can get on the gloves and go for some better jewel. If you want to save the slot on the jewel, you can go on other modifiers on the gloves. It doesn't really matter. And for the jewel, I'm just going for flat dex, flat intelligence, and percentage increase of max life. Here I'm taking 2 points here for just defiled forces. So it gives refresh duration of ignite on enemies you curse, and we cursing enemies with our penance mark from our ring. So we are refreshing ignite duration on them. Also, it removes elemental ailments when you cast a curse spell, and this counts as curse spell. So we are removing elemental ailments from us as well. And here we are just going upwards for some fire damage and fire damage over time, ignite damage, and here for some life nodes as well, and you count as low life while at 50% or of maximum life or below. If you have some spare points, you can go for these ones for life recoup, and infused flash, but it depends what you want to sacrifice, because as you can see, we are kind of really tight on our stats, on our skill tree. So, and in my case, I'm only level 96. So if I get 3 more levels, we can maybe get some those nodes here as well. So basically, this is what we do, and this is how we are playing with this one. And now basically we can talk about what is the best farming strategies for this build. So the best probably will be obviously simulacrum. You can just stay almost AFK there, do nothing, and farm there. You can do ultimatums, this is great. You can do rituals, you can do anything, basically any kind of strategies you want, which involves a lot of monsters and so on. You can do pretty much anything, just not the bossing. I mean, it's possible. You can kill tier 17s with this one, but it just takes quite some time, and it depends on ignite. So it's not the fastest one, but you can go and do some tier 17 farming without quite issues. So I've been doing quite a lot. You can delve with this one. We are currently at around 500 depth with this. There's no problem with this, and we're just going there. We can farm some maps. You can farm whatever you want. Just basically all-rounder. Whenever there's more mobs, a lot of monsters, it's good. So in this case, it's like toxic sewers. You can do a city square, you can do dunes, you can do jungle valley. But in our case, I just like to go over the toxic sewers because of the narrow passages and plenty of monsters, and they're just exploding all over. So it works pretty fine. Also about map modifiers which to avoid. So basically we need to avoid players cannot regenerate life. This is bad for us. It will brick our build. Also we don't want to take players has less life recovery, because that hurts us as well. Also try not to take players has minus to all elemental resistances, because that in that case we taking basically more damage and we have less life recovery. Also, if you're doing tier 17s, try to avoid that enemies can avoid elemental ailments, because in that case then it will be harder for us to ignite them. But this applies to only tier 17s, I think. So just check it before you can do those maps. Before you buy them, just check modifiers, and you'll be everything should be good. So basically, this is the build. It's really fun, and as always, I usually play at least once in a league with this one, and every time it just gives me some joy and happiness because it's just fun build to play. It's all rounder. It just scales pretty much from level 26 whenever you can just play Righteous Fire, and later just a transit to cast when stunned, and from there you can just do basically whatever you want. As I said, simulacrums, ultimatums, rituals, whatever. It works really good on all of them. So this is the build. This is how we do it, and it's been really fun and really easy to play. So as always, if you have any questions, drop down in a comment down below. And thanks for watching. Stay chill, hit hard, and see you in the next one.